Hi, my name is Alejandro Pérez Pérez, and this is the AI Coffee Podcast. Every 2 weeks, you will have one disruptive aspect of technology and artificial intelligence for the time you drink a cup of coffee. Today, we are going to discuss about so many interesting things, and for doing that, we have a very interesting guest. Her name is Helen. Welcome, Helen.
Hi, Alejandro. Thanks for having me.
Helen Tueni is an expert in digital transformation and artificial intelligence with a passion for making society more human through technology. She has recently started a freelance career in the field of digital transformation, and she's launching a startup in artificial intelligence for digital inclusion. Wow, Helen, it feels like you are passionate about this transformation, digital transformation, but also to pushing humanity through it. So, can you maybe start talking about yourself, your career, your motivations, and can you share with us a little bit your journey becoming an expert in digital transformation?
All right. So initially, I studied communication and business management, international management. And there were not so many careers for people who wanted to work in tech. You could, study IT or engineering, but that was not my choice. But very early on, I had the opportunity to work on digital projects, and it stirred a lot of interest for me. So little by little, my career started shifting towards this direction. And I went from being a project manager working on developing digital platforms and websites to being team leader, having a team working for me and handling set of, let's say, applications. And eventually, I got more ambitious, a real transformation program, and yes, so my career involved in this direction. So my career now it's a lot tech, but I keep doing this role of being a bit the middleman between tech, business, clients, and yeah, this is how my career evolved in this direction.
It feels really interesting, but something maybe complicated is to handle to be, let's say, a bridge between different positions, different roles, different even environments. So, what are for you the best points or the big learns maybe of being between the tech world, the business world, or even other worlds? What are like your big consideration, the better thoughts, the yeah, your point now about that.
Well, I think when you talk about digital transformation, it's not just the adoption and the implementation of a digital technology, but it's really, it is really about changing the ways people are working, collaborating, how business is delivering its value. So there is kind of a profound cultural shift that has to happen. And I found that when you deal with such complex projects and you have a huge variety of stakeholders, you do actually a lot of advocating. So next to really managing the daily life of these programs and real questions from the field about how to deal with what changes technology bring, you really have to work a lot on advocating what you do to the people, what change you are bringing on, and making sure that in order to do that, you encompass the different perspectives of all stakeholders that are involved. So I think it's really this way of being, not only speaking to everyone, but also listening to everyone and kind of incorporate understanding what they have to say. So you have to have kind of a mixed background, meaning that you have to speak the language of the technicians, you have to speak the language of the executive. You have to speak the language of, let's say, the subject matter expert that is that has perhaps some questions about how his or her job is going to change. But yes, you have to listen also a lot to be able to manage these projects.
Yes, how important listening is actually, and how rare it is to do it. And it's something, it's a very important skill, to be honest. I think so. But for me, it's one of the hardest ones, because we are used to live in a world where the ones that speak the loudest maybe are the most listened, actually. And sometimes it's complicated to be just listen, but that's also the position where you learn the most as well. So that's
Indeed.
a good point, Helen. What about your freelance career? Because well, I mentioned before that you are starting a freelance career, and I would like to know what motivations you have behind for doing so, and also for making a society more human through AI and technology. What about that? How do you do
Yeah.
it?
All right. So what is there is a lot of diversity and convergence in my career. So diversity by the fact that I worked in various sectors. So I worked in public affairs, I worked in energy, education, health, insurance funds. So I've seen a lot of different sectors, and I learned a lot from them, and my practice was about also kind of cross pollinizing each of my experience with what I have seen in other, because these sectors tended to be quite, let's say, stable. People tend to specialize a lot in these sectors, and when you come from outside and you bring a different perspective, and sometimes you are a bit like the fool in the room asking questions that are perhaps kind of strange to some people, but yeah, it's because you come with a different perspective. So I found this very enriching, and people were really appreciating the fact that I was coming with this different perspective. But in the meantime, there is some conversions. I've always worked in. I was lucky enough actually to work in companies that had, let's say, a virtuous mission, and they were always kind of mixed public-private environments. So um, publicly funded, very often regulated also. So you didn't have all the freedom that you would have in a strictly private company. But in the meantime, with some agility that you could find in the private sector, and some also kind of, let's say, um, pressure to deliver and be performant. So because sometimes you had shareholders, so there was also this dimension, and I found it also very enriching to be able to know these two, to
Mhm.
have to work with these different constraints. And I found it very, very interesting. And I thought, okay, now after spending a lot of years in these sectors, I feel that I would like to be more in an external position where I can, bring my knowledge and being also a bit aside from logics that you would experience more if you are in a company, and that you have to also pilot a career, and where whatever you say is also also defining how you're going to be perceived and what are your chances to evolve in this in this company. So I wanted to take this out of the equation and be more in a kind of neutral expert position, where I can say, okay, given my expertise, given what I've seen there and there, given my knowledge, now my specific knowledge also on AI that I've been developing over the last year, this is what I think, and this is the the position I feel more comfortable in having now.
It feels like you are really passionate about this. So, and I mean, while you are talking, it looks like that. So, I can see from your eyes while you're talking that you are passionate in this point, from with this perspective you have, and also, I mean, that you are also inside the project. So, yeah, I can understand it. Yes, and I think, yeah, people also will agree with me that you feel really that you are motivated there. So great.
Thank
So
you.
let's also pass to the subject of this episode, because I wanted you to talk about human centered design projects, about how important it is to create human value while working with digital transformation. And I have one question. um, I mean, you mentioned that before a little bit, but I would like you to explain a little bit more the concept of human-centered design. Well, you didn't explain like that. You explained more about the ideas that how important it is to work with people and for people. But um, can you explain it a bit better? What's human-centered design projects and the importance it has in our society?
Mhm. So, human-centered design is a comprehensive approach to crafting products, systems, and services that prioritize the needs, the preferences, the behavior of the end users, actually. So, it's really about taking these considerations, taking the end user and putting it at the forefront of the design process instead of doing tech for tech, for instance. So it is about taking the perspective of the user, taking his the problem he or she might be facing, and um, and really developing something that is that respects the user also in its humanity. So this goes also about the ethical issues, for instance. So human-centered design, it is, yeah, it is something that yeah, calls for empathy with the user. So we use a lot of co-creation techniques, and we work in an agile manner, which means that we use prototyping, we fail fast. There are a lot of feedback mechanisms that are embedded in the way we develop the services. And also we make sure that we have kind of multidisciplinary teams and stakeholders to really represent the variety of stakeholders. And this is really something that is important to me. It's we see over the last year that everything becomes digital, and of course for people who are educated, it just brings a lot more freedom, and you can go to your bank even during the night, and you can do whatever whenever you want. But there are a lot of people who are actually excluded from this progress, and this is all about inclusion and what I want to work on. But in a human-centered design, you really take all stakeholders into account, and you really design kind of socio technical systems that really, let's say, support society as a whole, and you ensure in the way you take your user into the crafting of this of the product, that you really, yeah, that your solution serve the largest number of people. So this is how I see it. I don't think there is one single definition, but for me it is really important, and it's really super important now, because it is, I think, the only way of guaranteeing that, let's say, our democratic and human rights values are really embedded in the products we design. And this is of paramount importance if you take AI, for instance, where you have this black box effect where you cannot always explain the decisions that are taken. I think it's really important to ensure that you have, yeah, humans that are at the center of what we are going to develop, and so which means that, yeah, it has to be explainable, it has to exclude biases and so on.
Yes, it's true that it's the key of everything because we as humans are working for humans somehow. So we sometimes forget, that maybe we think that we are working for, I don't know, for money or for other things, but at the end of the day, everything we are doing is for another human being to be, I don't know, for a service or a product that is going to be for them important. So I think now we talk often about human-centered design because of AI and digital transformation, but even before, even I mean, it's something that it's like relevant every time because even I don't know cars when they were invented at the beginning, they needed to think, okay, how people are going to sit comfortable here in these
Mhm.
seats, or how they are going to drive, or I don't know, or even before, I don't know, in everything that is designed somehow, it is very very important to think how humans are going to use it, and usually, which is something even better, is that at the end of the day, the products that are human-centered design are the best usually, and maybe they are not the best in terms of powerful or other things, but if people like to use them, that's the better. That's the good point, actually. That they are going to be sold or they're going to be used. So I mean, it's that's perfect. Yeah. Do you have any example idea also to that maybe comes to your mind while talking about human certain design, into like good practices or bad practices that you have seen often, or ones, for example, like I said before, with the cars, if they're not well done for the seating, maybe if they're not comfortable, so even though the engine would be super powerful, they're not going to be used. Do you have any other ideas coming to your mind?
Hmm. Yeah, I haven't thought a lot about this one, about real examples, um, or bad examples. I mean, I spoke about this because it's the only one that comes to me. But it's really about, the inclusiveness of digital, for instance, e-services that you have in yeah in Belgium. For instance, now everything that is about pension has been digitalized. So for instance, my mother, whenever she has a communication regarding her pension, she received a letter that saying that she has to go on the website to check what what is the communication. And actually, she, whenever this letter arrives, she freaks out. And fortunately, she's not alone, so we can help her. And it's not difficult for us to do it. I mean, it's well done. Now you have a very good system that makes it possible to log in using an app that is installed on a smartphone. And um, but um, but the problem is that people who are older, for instance, I mean, they have a general aversion towards digital technology. So I'm not saying it's a bad thing, because I can see the gain that is made. It's just that this specific public, I mean, these specific users, it's difficult for them to rely quasi exclusively on a digital channel to get very important information. And so I know, for instance, in Belgium, they are doing a lot to kind of educate digital migrants. And there are some free courses, and also public servants now developing online services have to kind of follow usability guidelines and so on. But sometimes it's just about technology and digitization cannot encompass all the use cases, and you have to accept it and take into account the perspective of the user. That is, okay, some people that are older don't feel comfortable, and sometimes they don't even have an application on the smartphone to be able to log in on a website to have information about their pension. And this, for me, should be at the core of how you are going to design this, let's say, use case, providing information about pension to Belgian citizens. So yeah, this is an example of something that
Mhm.
could be perhaps different.
Mhm. It is a good example because in Spain, I think last year or a year before, there was a campaign that was really, I mean, famous here in Spain, and it was made by an old person, and like yes, an old person that apparently I think he was a doctor and a very relevant person. I mean, when he was working in a hospital or something like that, and he started a campaign whose name was "We are only old. We are not stupid." I mean, translated into English, but that
Excellent.
was in Spanish, and that was really 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 clever because that's the point actually. I mean, these people have a lot to say, but the only thing is that they are not used to the way we now everything we do digital, and it was referring in this specific case more to banking, because banks in Spain, due to the COVID pandemic and later on, almost everything now is digital or in the ATMs. So you cannot talk to another human, and it's even worse in the countryside. And they I mean, more older people usually live in the countryside, so it's even worse the situation. So um, it was a very famous campaign, and it shows how important it is to take all people in the equation, but I mean also other kinds of people, because all the needs should be covered, and they are also like users, and they need to be able also to use it. And you cannot directly say, okay, let's move to digital, because for many other users it's better, and that's true, but not for all of them. So yeah, it's complicated. Yes, I agree. But Helen, let's also talk about the fact that you work with, as I said before, with different roles, different teams, in multidisciplinary teams. Um, what strategies do you use to ensure effective coordination between so many different people?
Yeah, so I think the basis of all is having a successful teams. And when I mean teams that are successful, I mean by that, first of all, complementarity of roles and perspectives. So, as you would need subject matter aspect and tech experts, depending, of course, of the technology you are implementing, there are some specificities, of course. You also need, I think, a good mix between internal people, external people, because what I see often is that sometimes, some can happen that some companies are over relying, for instance, on external people, and I think it's dangerous too. Or on the other side of the spectrum, trying to do everything internally, and actually, if you take technology, it moves too fast, and I think it really brings the best if you can kind of work in mixed teams, even if it's indeed challenging. But this is something that I found very important. And when I speak about diversity, I'm not doing kind of advocating diversity for the sake of advocating diversity. I have really seen that diverse team in terms of cultural background, genres, ages also tend to work better, because when you work on implementing something, it brings a lot of challenges. And if you have a diverse team, you have different perspectives. And if you have in this team, kind of you celebrate those differences and you favor emulation, then you have kind of this they tend to think better and to provide a richer set of answer to challenges that might come, but also to kind of identify more upfront what could be some complications for, let's say, for instance, the adoption of a technology involving different processes. So I think diverse teams are really, really important. Then what was important, but I've touched a word about that earlier, is really the understanding you need digital leadership at the top of the company, because dealing with transformation, it's not like, okay, we are just going to implement some fancy tool and then it's going to be better. No, it really touches on how people are working on their daily jobs or how people are collaborating. Sometimes it can even change the balance between teams, because for instance you could implement something that in a team means that we are not going to need some people because their work had have been totally automatized, while in other teams you will need more people because you are perhaps bringing a marketing platform that enable people to do kind of personalization targeting, and then means that you can hire more people to work with this tool. So yeah, I mean the implications are more than just technical, and if you don't have this technological leadership and yeah leaders that really understand the impact, that can be different. And this is why as a manager and of these kind of programs you need to do a lot of advocating. And then agility, I've talked about it because this is one of the principal the yeah they say the techniques of the human-centered design approach. But really, it is important to be able to deliver quickly and fail fast. So you have to, I mean, to change the conception of failure and really embed failure in success. So to be able to be successful, you need to be able to fail in a controlled way. Of course, we don't want to jeopardize what the organization is doing or to impact users in a not pleasant way. But really, this agility in being iterative, providing kind of yeah prototypes to be able to test, see the response, and adjust is really important. And something that is super important also, and this is what agility is also about for me, is that we live in a changing environment. And I mean, especially if you are in AI, look at what happened this week in terms of regulation all over the world. It was crazy. And this is something that changes super quickly. We live also in a world where companies, organizations have to adjust constantly, and technology is also evolving daily. So agility is also being able to cope with all those changes and still be able to deliver something in a kind of coherent vision. So to me, agility is not something that means like, okay, I can be, I can go to this direction and then I can go in this one, because then you don't go anywhere. But being able to adapt, but still following a vision, a direction that is coherent. So yeah, I think that were my takeover for doing this.
Yes, I should say that I mean I cannot understand digital transformation or an IT organization otherwise than agile, because now if I see for I think for example in ChatGPT for example, right, uh, it was about a year ago when it arrives, only 1 year ago. So if we had planned for example a digital transformation, I mean but like a waterfall project with different things on the path for maybe 1 or 2 years. 2 years ago, I mean, no one has thought about ChatGPT or something even similar. So the context has changed so quickly that it's completely impossible to have today an idea of what we are going to do 1 year later or 2 years later. It's impossible directly. So as you said, it's very important to have like the direction of what we want to do more or less, but then adapt it completely every day almost, and adapt to the new regulation and the new products and everything arriving. Yes, I agree with you. And also, something I wanted to ask you. I mean, we can talk about so many different things, but one thing that I saw in your profile, that you are also like, I think, an expert, and you talk a little bit on LinkedIn about it, as I saw, is about the smart cities. How do you see the role of open data in shaping smart cities?
Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of roles, but what interests me the most in in open data enabling smart cities is really the fact that you can use data to make informed governance, to do informed governance. So this is really about having a sound base of taking some decisions, and really can being able also to justify them in a very transparent and I find it democratic way. So I'm excited about how open data can open the governance of cities. And so, yeah, to me, this is the first very important aspect. But also, and now even more that I'm starting in this startup venture, open that data also means it's becoming possible for smaller organizations and new entrants to take part to the um, the technological progress of the city and its progress in general. And yeah, I mean, you have this data. You can imagine a service because you are a citizen. You are confronted daily with some pain points, for instance, and if you have access to this data, you can be proactive. And if you are in an environment that sustain entrepreneurship, because this is also important, you can really bring this innovation to structures that perhaps could not actually cope with the speed of innovation that is needed to match with the citizens' expectations. So I think this the way it enables ecosystems of innovation involving startups. I think it's really to me the one key aspect I'm excited about.
Yes, and I agree with you. And also, I have seen recently that there is also a movement around smart villages, that I think it's also another clever idea, right? Like, to empower villages that usually are not digital, that are apparently far away from the digital transformation that happens in the cities, but where they have a lot of things to say and a lot of things also to produce. And recently, I did an interview to another colleague of the master, of the A4Gov master, that works with a startup, like working in the countryside. And it's really important also to digitalize, to create AI models that works with in his case was, I mean, it was the episode with Michael, and it was around farms and very very countryside things that are really interesting. But actually, I mean, it's very important. I mean, most of the food we eat, like from plants or animals, they come from the countryside, and maybe it's one of the most important things in our life, food. So there is like a lot of things that could already be done there as well. And also the data produced there, it's very important to maybe predict, I mean, I don't know, the future somehow. Maybe the production of any specific kind of fruit or something. I mean, there's like a lot of things that are really relevant. And as you say, these open data scenarios um, are really intelligent because maybe you don't know exactly how, but maybe a startup or another company can take this data that is produced by the public sector and go for it for a solution that goes to the I mean goes through the like everyone, like everything is going to take a benefit from it. So yeah, really important. And Helen, let's now talk about the future. You talked a little bit before, I think. You talk about responsible, trustworthy AI in Europe a little bit, and how important it is to put light in these black boxes, as you said before. But how do you see it? Do you see the future? I mean, are you more optimistic or pessimistic about the future?
Well, it's funny because our interview was normally scheduled 1 week ago, and during this week there has been so many things going on in the news about AI regulation, because ensuring responsible and trustworthy AI unfortunately needs some regulation, and that when I crafted my first, when I thought about it the first time, um, there was I mean, there was the AI Act, and it was pretty much not everything, but it was really kind of the leads initiative. And this week there has been so many other initiatives all over the world around regulation. So I think it's to me. I mean, I am a huge believer into the potential of AI for humanity. But in the meantime, of course, I mean, you can not ignore the fact that there is also a lot of risk, and the fact that all powers, great powers worldwide, are taking now a stance on regulating each one of them with its own flavor, and now it's just the beginning, so we have to see how it's going to unfold. But to me already it feels like, okay, we Europeans are not the only ones talking about that. I mean, it was not the case before, but really, investing a lot of efforts in this. We are not alone, and there is a general understanding about that. Now, it's also funny to see there is also kind of this fight for taking the global leadership on regulating AI. So it's interesting to witness. But yes, I think it can do harm. If we take Europe more specifically, now I think that following the AI Act is going to be really the making of standards that are going to let's say support the enforcement of the AI Act, and there already. I want to be optimistic, but I really hope this process is going to be transparent, and that this standardization process is really going to take into account not only big companies, but also the interest of small companies, and not favor proprietary AI that is perhaps where vendors are more able to cope with the complexities of what the regulation asks for, but be able also to have some flexibility to accommodate smaller actors, and also sustain open source, because I think open source is super important too. I mean, when we talk about generative AI, there are values embedded in what is provided as knowledge. So it is really important that we are also able to sustain more open platforms, and work with researchers also to increase the transparency of these platforms. So yeah, this is what I think the challenges lies next, but also how we are going to enforce it and so on. I mean, but I'm optimistic to answer your question. I think it goes to the right direction.
Yes, actually, I think it's a very interesting moment in the history. I think so. I'm happy that we are witnessing that, right? Like, everything is changing really quickly. So yes, I'm happy being part of this. And I mean, I'm sure that in about, I don't know, 10 years, in 10 years or 20 years, I think we are not going to talk anymore about artificial intelligence, because it will be so clear that it's integrated in our daily life, that it's not going to have like a name like that. I'm really sure that we are going to have so many new things that we don't even know now. But not anymore the word artificial intelligence. It's going to be something more complex. So many different types of AIs that, I mean, so even sometimes I think maybe the AI regulation that we are thinking now, it's going to be so small in a couple of years, because I remember, for example, the first regulation of computers and internet. Now, if you read them, they are really old fashioned. Like, even the words they're using, they are not anymore used. And sometimes I feel like that. So maybe in about 20 years or 10 years, AI is not going to be even like a word we use. So yeah, sometimes I try to think like that, that maybe everything is just going to be so quickly, so like that, that yeah, who knows. But at the end of the day, I'm also optimistic, and I think that it will help so much in medicine, for example, in the, I don't know, fraud detection, in using like all the for example, in the cities, as you were saying before, in trying to help citizens to have a better life. So I think there are like multiple use cases, and most of them are going to be good for humanity. So yeah, I'm also optimistic. Mhm. And Helen, we are almost finishing. As you saw, time passed really, really quickly in the podcast. So I have a question to start finishing the interview. So I would like you to give a piece of advice to imagine someone who is listening this podcast, someone that maybe is finishing the university or is starting a career in the professional world, and is listening us, for example, thinking, oh, how interesting this is, how interested digital transformation and project management worlds are, and maybe is thinking to start a career in this direction but doesn't know exactly how. Can you give an advice to this person?
Yeah, I would say don't be afraid to learn, because very often people who, I mean, it was my case. I didn't study specifically, yeah, let's say a tech matter, but if you are passionate, if you are willing to do the extra mile, willing to keep on learning and do it and understand that it's going to be a lifelong stuff happening to you, then I mean you can definitely go into this field, because it's really something that requires to learn nonstop. But if you're at the start of your career, I would say just start, and you know what you want to do. You know more or less perhaps the sector you would like to work in. Just start and see and venture. I mean, a career is something that is long. You can change. In my case, change from one sector to another has been only virtuous. So don't be afraid to make mistake, because this is also by getting to know different organizations that you also identify what you like and what you don't like, and it's also what makes the journey interesting. So yeah, I would say don't be too specific at the beginning. Just venture, learn, and discover.
Mhm. I think it's a good piece of advice to someone who is starting. But now, if you think, for example, someone who is thinking about changing, as you said that you did before, what would you say to this kind of person?
So changing from one sector to another.
Yes, yes.
Um, Yeah, well, it depends on what is required, and sometimes you have to do your homework before being able to really move from one, let's say, one topic to another. For instance, in my case, I when I started getting very interested in artificial intelligence, because yes, I was dealing with digital transformation, and I could see it was going to disrupt a lot of things, and I tried first to do it on my own to understand how it was working. But when I understood that it was just too much, there were too many aspects that were impacted. I just went back on studying again. I did my AI for Gov master, and yeah, I mean, this is what gave me somehow the feeling of legitimacy, because then I could yeah, let's say, benefit from the experience of other people being specific and recognized in that field, and then it could give me this legitimacy for entering this field. Otherwise, it would have been more difficult for me to really feel comfortable. So yeah, I mean, don't going back to school. It's an investment, but I've done it twice in my career, and it has always paid off. If you can avoid it, then it's fine. But sometimes I mean, I see a lot of people saying, "Oh yeah, I would like to do this, but it would require that I take on a master degree and that I do something more." I mean, it always pays off. And if you are really passionate and you want to do it, yeah, don't be afraid and go for it. Yeah, I think that would be my piece of advice for someone who wants to shift career, but feels somehow overwhelmed because yeah, there's too much to unpack.
Great. Great. Thank you for the advice. I think they are really wise and maybe also valuable for someone who is listening. So just if, for example, this person wants to communicate with you to tell you thank you for these advices, how can the audience contact you?
Well, I'm on LinkedIn, and yeah, I'm connected a lot on LinkedIn, so that would be the best way.
Great. And also, the last question I usually ask to all the guests in this podcast, Helen, is what's your favorite type of coffee? You know, this is the AI Coffee podcast. So, of course, coffee is also a relevant part of the podcast. So, how do you like coffee?
So my favorite coffee is very short, and probably it will be very cold by the time we have finished this podcast because I love a very short espresso, an Italian one, and yeah, usually brewed on the side and preferably sustainably sourced to be to be also to cover the ethical concerns.
That's a great point of view. I think no one said that. So also thank you for this. Yeah, it's good to talk about this as well. So Helen, we have finished. Thank you very much for your time, for your energy. As you said before, that's the second time we are trying to record. So thank you very much also for being like here again and trying again to do this interview. And thank you very much. Yeah, I think it was really valuable.
Thank you. It was a real pleasure.
Okay. Okay. And also, thank you to you that are listening again one episode. It's a pleasure for me being here one more week. I wish a very good day to you. And if you liked it, please subscribe, share it with your friends, your relatives, your colleagues. And think about AI? Are you optimistic or pessimistic? Tell me in comments or wherever you want. Thank you. Bye bye.